Hello, I'm Surfer Clock.
And I'm Tap G.
And welcome to What's the Attraction?
Where our work is your vacation.
You listeners are in for a real treat today. New Fantasyland's grand opening isn't until December 6th of 2012. But thanks to a friend of What's the Attraction, who also happens to be a cast member at Disney, we were able to join her in a special sneak peek into New Fantasyland, where most everything is already up and ready to go.
We walked around Belle's Village, checked out the Be Our Guest restaurant, built a rocket, fought a mummy, climbed the Eiffel Tower.
You're quoting the Phineas and Ferb theme song.
Went skydiving, went Rocky Mountain climbing, went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu.
That's Tim McGraw's Live Like You Are Dying.
Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray.
Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire.
Okay, fine. So there wasn't much we could do, but there was only so much available in a dive like that. I was kind of crabby and my hands were all clammy, so we had to see something. Dude, help me out here.
Jeez, man. Jungle Cruise puns have more dignity than those. No, folks, as you may have guessed, we're checking out Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid.
The 70s and 80s were an uncomfortably awkward era for Disney. The last animated film that was a legitimate success was The Jungle Book in 1967. Numerous times, Disney executives seriously considered closing down the animation department, convinced it was too expensive, time-consuming, dated, and unlucrative to continue making animated features. Then, in 1989, Disney released The Little Mermaid, and it took the world by storm. It was a success beyond contemporary measure for the Mouse House.
And of course, when something that popular plops in Disney's lap, an attraction proposal couldn't be far behind. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't. It had two things that can make it an all-star ride: a popular film tie-in and an exotic location. Models, sketches, and designs were prepared. The ride vehicles were made to be suspended on an overhead track just like Peter Pan's flight. But for one reason or another, the project was shelved in 1992. In 2006, Disney released the Platinum Edition of the movie on DVD with an in-depth review of this attraction, complete with a CGI ride-through with Imagineer Tony Baxter.
Why is this significant? Well, the attraction in Magic Kingdom's New Fantasyland is essentially that ride. In 2011, Disney's California Adventure received their version, very similar to Florida's newest current attraction.
In this ride, what do you expect from a Fantasyland ride? Like Snow White's Scary Adventures, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Legend of the Lion King, and Peter Pan's Flight, it's essentially a plunge into the film's story. Quite literally, in fact.
In the ride's queue, we are greeted with a crashed ship with an aerial figurehead right beside Prince Eric's Mediterranean chateau. Though I thought with the original author's nationality being Denmark, I thought Eric would be Danish. Though he looks nothing like a breakfast pastry to me.
You wind and meander through the queue's orange rocks. At some point, you see a bunch of human junk cluttered around the rocks, and a sign informs you that you must help Ariel organize it all. In all sorts of glass flotsam, tiny blue crabs collect and display some junk for you. If you point at them, they'll move it out. If you wave at them, they wave back. Adults will be entertained, but kids will be hypnotized by this level of interactivity. Eventually, you come around the corner and see Scuttle, Ariel's seagull friend, introduce us to the world we are entering. Then comes the ride.
The ride is an omnimover, a ride system of continually moving vehicles, similar to the Haunted Mansion and Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin. From the moving platform, you step into your two-person clamshell, and away you go. You become a passive observer in Ariel's tale. The ride displays the film's musical moments: Under the Sea, Poor Unfortunate Souls, Part of Your World, and Kiss the Girl.
The ride retells the story we all know and love. From Disney. Yeah, still no turning to seafoam moments, you Hans Christian Andersen purists. Young Princess Ariel, a mermaid who longs for the life of being human, falls for a prince. Her peers and her father disapprove, prompting her to seek help from a sea witch, Ursula, who grants her legs in exchange for her voice. Does true love prevail? Does everyone live happily ever after? Is the seaweed always greener in somebody else's lake?
Let me just read some of the notes that I had after riding this ride.
Okay.
First and foremost, the audio animatronics they have on this ride are really cool.
They are pretty cool. They kind of evoke the classic Disney dark ride sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. They're fresh, they're brand new, they blink, they have a lot of movement to them, so I give them an A+ on that technology there.
Definitely.
The best part, I think, of the entire attraction is the part where you actually go underwater. Now, you're not going underwater so much as your clamshell tilts backwards, kind of like that scene where you go into the graveyard, the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's this blast of cold AC right on top of you, and you see on the clamshell in front of you that the water is rising. So it feels like you just plunged into cold water.
I think it's pretty cool. It's a nice touch, but I like the queue, how it's a little interactive and you point at the crabs and they carry the stuff away. Yeah, that was kind of cute, but I think that's only going to really work for a little while. They're going to have to plus that somehow.
Yeah.
And as far as the 2-person clamshell, I really don't think it's big enough. I feel like they could have done more of a Haunted Mansion style, where you can at least get 3 people into that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really bad when you have the huge crowds and you're just putting 2 people in at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just imagine what those tour groups are going to be like.
Oh boy. Well, they seem to be doing okay with a Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin.
That's true. A lot of them are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the ride is more a musical review than it really is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it kind of builds itself up just to show you a couple of songs and a little bit of progress through the story.
I have to really agree with you on that. And one of my biggest complaints that I had on this ride was the pacing in and of itself. Once you get on the ride, you see Scuttle, and then there's nothing. Then you see Ariel singing Part of Your World, and then it just keeps going on. There's nothing to see. Then it's Under the Sea. The pacing is just lousy.
The transitions really are kind of
jarring.
Yeah, they're kind of Bush League. I don't really think they're the best that Disney can do.
And not to mention, just to give you folks an idea, Ursula only appears in 2 scenes throughout the entire ride, just 2 scenes. In one of them, she's singing Poor Unfortunate Souls. The second time you see her is she's being zapped to death, like she did at the end of the movie. And I think this ride was made purely for fans of The Little Mermaid. Now, let's be fair. Everyone's seen The Little Mermaid by now. There's very few people who haven't, or at least know the story. So there's that, but that doesn't mean that you could just make a ride saying, well, you know the story, so here you go. Here's a couple of songs.
Well, it is very jarring, and I think it is a very charming ride, and it's classically styled. It's got that great sort of Disney dark ride kind of thing going for it. But I don't really think it's amazing. And I mean, for this to be New Fantasyland and have kind of an old-style ride in there, It's nice, it's nostalgic, but I just don't think... I think they could have done better. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 2.5 out of 5.
And I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. This ride is wagering on you knowing the story. Though most everybody in the world has seen The Little Mermaid by now, it's still counting on its main audience, fans of The Little Mermaid movie. It's a ride for everybody, no doubt, but if you aren't familiar with the story or the characters, it's going to take some time to adjust.
Ooh, don't forget the music. If you like the music from the film, you're probably going to enjoy this a lot.
You must be able to transfer from your wheelchair or scooter before you board your ride vehicle. And children must be at least 7 to go alone, and if they aren't, they must be with someone who's at least 14.
Handheld captioning is available on this attraction, and the handheld captioning devices are available at Guest Relations. So, if you have any other questions about that, kindly see someone at Guest Relations.
Before Surfer Clock and I end our podcast for today, we want to first thank you for listening to us. We appreciate every listen you out there put on our site, YouTube, and Facebook.
But we also want to announce that soon, Tap G and I are going to review the other wave-making attraction in New Fantasyland, Enchanted Tales with Belle. And when the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train ride opens in 2014, we'll be there too.
So thanks for putting up with us, folks. With more New Fantasyland on the way, I'm Tap G.
And I'm Surfer Clock.
And stay tuned for What's the Attraction, where our work is your vacation.